G'day, looking at Ecclesiastes chapter 11 from verse 1. Wonder if you've done any of those personality diagnostic tests, kind of like Myers-Briggs or the Gallup Strengths Finder, different tests that help us to explore how we naturally do things. What are our personality types or tendencies? I guess as I've done some of these tests, I tend to get the feel after a while as to how you're going to end up if you answer your questions in a particular way. And you can get a little bit savvy and so answer what you would like to be rather than what you actually are. Kind of defeats the purpose, and if you're paying a lot of money, it's not worth doing that. But I've noticed that people tend to look at the same things differently. Some people are glass half full, some people are glass half empty. Some people are more pessimistic, some people are more optimistic. Some people really feel things deeply, others just kind of seem to think it all through and don't tend to feel too much at all. When it comes to exploring life and seeing some of the struggles and pain that there is in life, and Ecclesiastes has demonstrated that life is full of challenges, that life is full of dead ends, and the problem of mortality is really a major stumbling block in this book. It brings everything to naught. And as we look at this, it can lead people to one of two extremes. The negative extreme, if I can put it that way, is of anxiety, just being immobilized, fearful, not able to do anything because of the uncertainties of life and the possibilities of things going wrong. On the other end, there can be the bravado, the arrogant extreme. That is, I'm going to do this and nothing's going to stop me. Well, the part of Ecclesiastes that we're looking at in chapter 11, I think it addresses both these personality types, or if it's not a type, it certainly addresses both these outcomes in thinking and feeling. And I'll read it and then make some points from this passage. He says, "Ship your grain across the sea. After many days you may receive a return. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. If clouds are full of water, they pour rain on the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally as well." You see, this is a passage which reminds us that we don't know the future. We don't have a crystal ball, we don't have any clear picture of what's going to happen tomorrow, what will happen next month, what will happen next year. And yet we need to live. We need to make decisions. We need to make choices. The attitude that says, I can do whatever I want, sometimes comes a serious cropper. There's a passage in James, which we've looked at already, it talks about the person who boldly says, I'm going to do this, and then it just doesn't happen. See, there's uncertainty built into these words here. We don't know, you see, what disaster may come upon the land, there in verse 2. Or we don't know the path of the wind. Or we don't know how a body is formed in a mother's womb. So we cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. We don't know what will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. It's a passage that talks about uncertainty. You might be thinking, well, it's an ancient thing. Surely we do know now the path of the wind. We can predict it. We do know now how a body is formed in a mother's womb. But let's not lift this kind of 1000 BC document into the current scientific, meteorological, gynecological understanding. No, it's to miss the point he's making. And that is, we do not know many mysteries. There is so much for all that we do know that we still don't understand. And ultimately, we cannot understand the work of God, who's the maker of all things. So there's a great danger in living with arrogance, saying, I can do whatever I want. I'll be the master of my own destiny. But equally, there's a danger in an anxiety which leads us to do nothing. A fear which immobilizes us and leaves us trapped, unwilling, uncertain, fearful of taking any steps lest they be the wrong steps. And it seems that this is the major issue that these words are addressed to. It says, no, ship your grain across the seas. Invest in 7 ventures or 8. You don't know what's going to happen, whether there'll be disaster on the land. Persevere with your business. Seek to get a return. Or, he says a little further on, if you just keep watching the wind, you'll never plant. If you keep watching the clouds, you'll never reap. If you don't sow your seed in the morning and keep your hands active in the evening, then you don't know whether anything's going to succeed, because unless you act, you won't get a response. Unless you plant, you won't get a crop. Unless you continue to feed and to water it and to weed the crops that you've grown, unless you keep out the animals, unless you protect it, unless you do things in the right season or the wrong season, you won't get a crop. Sure, you don't control the rain. You don't control how much sunshine. You can't control so many variables, but it doesn't mean you don't act. No, this is a great encouragement to step out and live life. Sure, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but if we do know God, and we know that God knows what's going to happen, there's an added incentive for us to take a step of faith, for us to step out and make decisions, for us to go this way or that way, for us to plan, even if we're planning in pencil, for us to enter into business, for us to enter into education, for us to begin a relationship, for us to have children, for us to step out and go places and do things. Not because we know the future, we don't, but because we can trust God. As we step out into the future, He is with all those who call on Him, who trust in Him. He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. We can rely upon our God. Yes, there'll be mysteries. Yes, there'll be things that we don't understand, but we can trust Him with those things and continue to act in faith as we trust Him with our future.